Okay, so it's about time for me to make another video with difficult rock, and I've got a new percussion flaker, and this one, let's see if I have my tape measure or measuring device. Let's see. This one I believe is 1.25 inches in diameter, or maybe a little bit more. Anyway, it's about 1.25 inches, and the bit or the copper rod is 3/8, so it's a little bit heavier than my normal. I'm going to use the same mallet, but I also have a little bit wider mallet, a little bit heavier. I might use this. Anyway, I'm going to reduce these down. Got a little bit of daylight left. If the daylight fails, I'm going to turn the light on and just continue it. I've got 4 pieces here. I'm going to reduce down into bifaces, some difficult, clunky rocks. So the first one here, I'm just going to trace the outline. Let's see how close I get. Okay, that's the outline of the piece. Okay. Sandstone. I'm looking for a way to get into this to try to take advantage of some ridges and stuff. Now, if you've got real tough stone and you're wondering how to, take care of turtlebacks like this, and how to eliminate a lot of mass, don't mess with the raw stone. If it's really tough, just get a piece of heat treated or heat treat that stone. You got to be able to run flakes. So if you've got some really tough stone, it's just really difficult to run flakes. You got to be able to do stuff like that. There really isn't any way around it. If you got really tough stone and you're having trouble with turtlebacks and big lumps, it's probably because you're working tough stone. Anyway, enough of that. I recommend not trying to work miracles and know the limitations of your materials. Okay, so with stuff like this, I'm going to hit above center line in a lot of cases, and I'm going to go pretty quick here so I can get most of this done while there's still daylight. Okay. I'm using the larger diameter mallet. What I'd like to do in a lot of cases is to run these flakes as diagonally as possible instead of straight in from the sides. Either come in from the base or come in diagonally. That's it's not a trade secret, but it's pretty good, a pretty good rule of thumb to follow. Try to come in not directly from the sides. Every other direction except directly in from the sides. was going to set up a platform there, but I changed my mind. And I'm not going to do a lot of heavy grinding, and I'm not going to use a lot of support in my hand. I am going to use some to hold it rigid so the mass is pretty steady, consistent. You know, the harder I grip and the steadier it is, the more mass in general I'm working with. The only problem with that is sometimes with a firm grip the flakes don't travel, so you know, you'll stop a flake. So there's a trade-off. If you hit it hard enough, you can make those flakes pass under your finger, but sometimes it's kind of difficult to do that. Alright, I've got an area here that really needs to be taken down, so I've got to start applying some serious force, and I'm going to try to follow some ridges here. And that didn't do too much except make it more pointy, but eventually it'll get pointy enough that I can start knocking flakes off the pointy part itself. Oh, that was not good. I'm going to lose some width here. I'm going to go with a smaller diameter just because it feels like I'm losing some gripping power with the larger one, but it doesn't feel much better with the smaller one, so I'll switch back. You know, and the grip helps too to increase the mass of your mallet, but the speed sometimes will compensate for that. If you hit fast, it'll compensate for lack of mass. Now this one I am coming in from the side because there's not much else I can do. Hit that really hard. Now if I can get in from another angle, I'll try it, but it's not really feasible. Again, I'm hitting really, really hard. So that took off a good portion. See, I hit a low spot on that edge and took off a good portion. Now, if you have tough rock, that kind of strike is not going to do much. Again, if I can come in from a different angle than from the side, I'd rather do that. See, I could come in, see this is so low, I can come in straight from the side and try to take that out, but I'm going to try to weaken it first, wear it down a little bit more, and then come in from the side. I'm going to try to come in from here and maybe reduce some width here and come in this way too, because I got to get rid of this cortex. But I can probably follow this ridge in here. See that one? It took off a lot of that side here. The only problem with that is these bulbs of percussion are kind of large, and it leaves you with an edge that's really thin. We'll see how that works. Should have hit that one harder. And I need to reduce some width here. Okay. Yeah, that cortex is not cooperating, so I'll try to take that off a little bit later. Okay. Not much option. I have to come in straight from the side there. So I hit it very hard. Kind of hit my finger really hard too. When this came down, that flake really hit my finger. But anyway, it took off a big portion. That cortex really is not cooperating. It's pretty soft. I'm trying to come in from the tip here. Not too bad. I wish it would have traveled a little bit further. But like I said, that cortex is not cooperating. I might be able to just hit that step there. Yeah. So that took care of some of it. So I'm trying to hit kind of diagonally. I'm going to use a coarse abrader now because the edges are getting really thin. One of these artificial coarse abraders. Okay, just opportunistic flake removal, just wherever I see a good ridge. Okay, again, when I've exhausted all the major platforms, let's go back and reabrade. I'm getting close now. I'm going to compare this to the original outline. Now the 3/8 inch really spreads the force out over a larger area, so the concentration of force is not as good as it is with a 1/4 inch flaker. But I can hit this really hard and it's not going to wear out nearly as fast as the 1/4 inch. So I can do 1/4 inch work with the 3/8 inch and not worry too much about losing a lot of material on my bit or wearing out the 1/4 inch until I really need to do some detail work. Like right there, that platform wasn't good for a 3/8. So I got a step. And over the past year or so, my Flintknapping has been more of how to prevent step fractures than anything else. I haven't really focused on point types or flake patterns or things of that nature. I've been basically just trying to figure out how to eliminate step fractures, and I spent a year doing it. And I did a lot of preform work. I got myself a lot of exposure to real artifacts as well in the preform stage to see how well mine match up with the real things. And for the most part, mine don't match the preforms, the real ones. See, mine are kind of jagged and relatively flat. Real ones have smoother edges. They're not quite as jagged and they're not as flat. Usually there's some kind of bend in them. They're following a major flake removal here and there. I've got a lot of little tiny flake removals on mine, and a lot of the real ones have large flake removals. They're really hitting these hard to get rid of huge flakes to flatten them out in the early stages, but I don't tend to do it that way. I tend to get lenticular right away and then stay that way through the whole process. But yeah, and the biggest thing about not getting step fractures is to know the limitations of your material and your tools. You start asking too much of the tools and the materials and you'll get lots of step fractures. Anyway, I'll leave it like that. I can thin it down a little bit more, but it's getting to where I need to get a little bit more precise. So I should switch over to 1/4 inch. And even though this is heat treated, it's still kind of tough. But when you get step fractures like this, you can come in from the other side and try to clear those off. That's like the easiest way. And a lot of the real artifacts are that way too. You come in from both sides. And I think some were stepped in the middle on purpose, and then they had enough skill they could come back and easily clear those off from the other side. That way they don't have to expend so much power to remove flakes. They can not stress the preform too much and run shorter flakes. Okay, so on this one, the original size is that big. I forgot to take a thickness, but there you go. That's that one. And at this point I'd switch over to a smaller diameter tool, or even, clean it up with some pressure. That junk, I can get rid of it with diagonal flaking coming in from the sides. But for the most part, the step fractures are minimal. And yeah, it took me a long time to get used to knowing the limitations of the material. I usually just haphazardly flake and try to get something out of it the most efficient way possible. But I'm taking a different turn to my flintknapping and trying to be more careful and more conscious of the actual look of the flakes now. But I'll do that. I'll show more of that in future videos. Okay.